The sun was barely up, and the grass was still wet with dew when I first noticed the orange spray paint, gaudy fluorescent streaks on my old oaks, the ones my great-grandfather planted by the creek so long ago. I can't tell you exactly what ran through my mind at that moment. Maybe it was shock, maybe it was a kind of cold fury. But what I do remember is the heaviness in my chest, like someone just dropped a stone down a well. Our family's ranch isn't a backdrop for city folks' weekend selfies. This place is 2,000 acres of Texas hill country handed down through 4 generations, worked hard every day. We run 400 head of Angus, and those back 500 acres, the ones with the sweetest creek water, are the soul of this land. So seeing someone spray paint on my trees, that wasn't just vandalism, that was an insult. Thing is, trouble doesn't always roll in with thunder. Sometimes it tiptoes across your fence line in the form of progress. A few years back, the east side of our property, once wild and quiet, became the site of a fancy nature estate, which is a real pretty way of saying a bunch of city folks in million-dollar houses pretending to live the country life. Wagon wheels on the mailbox, brand new boots, never seen dirt, and an HOA that thought they were kings of the hill. At first their complaints were almost funny. Cows smell. Tractors are loud. Can't believe the sunrise doesn't wait for their coffee. I brushed it off, figured they'd get used to ranch life or move on. But orange paint on my best land. That was new. Following the painted trail, I found a survey crew nervous as stray dogs marking what looked an awful lot like a hiking path on my land. Morning, I said, trying to keep the tension out of my voice. Y'all care to explain what you're doing here? Their chief, barely older than my oldest son, tells me the HOA hired them to mark out a community trail. He holds up a map, one I've never seen, showing my pasture as common area. It'd be laughable if it weren't so bold. Before I could press further, a black SUV comes bouncing down the gravel, and out steps the HOA president herself. Expensive jeans, city slicker boots, not a hair out of place. She's got that smile folks wear when they're about to tell you they're taking something from you for the greater good. She launches into a speech about property law, hands me a folder stuffed with documents, tells me the developer's maps prove the HOA owns my creek and those oaks. She points out that my cattle, my fences, even my grass are all violations. I'm handed a notice: remove everything in 30 days or face $500 a day fines. I'll admit I was mad. But anger's not a strategy. So I told her I appreciated her professionalism and that all future communication should come by certified mail. I asked for every piece of documentation she had, and after she left, I spent the afternoon photographing every paint mark, logging GPS coordinates, building my own case. I called my attorney, a man who knows property law the way old ranchers know weather. He didn't mince words. They're after your land, adverse possession. If they can make it look public, they'll try to take it. That trail was their first move. Within weeks, I was getting a stack of certified letters from the HOA demands violation notices compliance forms. They even put a shiny sign on my gate, future site of community park, artist rendering and all. But what they didn't know is I run trail cams for coyotes, and those caught something even uglier. The HOA president, caught on camera, tried to bribe my ranch hand $500 for the gate code. He played it cool, told her he couldn't help, but that footage told me all I needed to know. I wasn't about to just yell and threaten. If they wanted a paper trail, I'd give them a whole forest. I hired the oldest, most respected survey firm in the state and a lawyer whose hourly rate could give you heartburn. We wrote the HOA said we'd join a boundary audit, but only if every step followed Texas law and every party was present. The president jumped at it. She was so sure the survey would go her way, she even offered to split the costs. What she didn't know was I'd already had my own survey done, and it proved the land was ours. The day of the audit, we all gathered at sunrise, surveyors, lawyers, the HOA board, even a sheriff's deputy for good measure. As the surveyors worked, the truth became clearer. With every stake they drove in the dirt, the boundary line was far east of where the HOA claimed, and by lunchtime, their attorney looked like he wanted to disappear. But the real punchline, the subdivision's clubhouse and pool, those symbols of their community, were actually built 15 feet over onto my property. That one announcement from the surveyor left the crowd in stunned silence. The HOA's lawyer sputtered, demanded more checks, but the surveyor stood firm. Their original developer had hired a cut-rate crew, and the errors were now official. My attorney stepped up calm as ever. "We're filing a quiet title action," he announced, using the HOA's own letters and demands as evidence. "Not only will the court declare our ownership, but you'll have to pay for every inch you trespassed. The options: pay $500,000 for the narrow strip under their clubhouse, or tear it all down." The president's face turned crimson. Lawsuit threats flew, but the deputy kept order. The survey became record. The courts moved faster than anyone expected. Maybe the judge liked seeing a bully trip on their own shoelaces. The HOA lost every claim, had to pay my legal costs, and then face the ultimate bill: either buy a strip of land for the price of a house or demolish their precious facilities and start over. They chose demolition, cost them $2 million, and left every resident with an $8,000 special assessment on top of their dues. The entire board got tossed. The old president vanished from town in disgrace. What did I do? I put in a new security system, built a spike fence tall enough to block their view, and stocked the pasture nearest the line with 50 of the noisiest, most fragrant bulls I could find. These days I sit on my porch, watch the creek shimmer, and listen to the quiet. The subdivision's gone silent, too busy paying off their debts to worry about trails and parks. Funny how the orange paint faded, but the memory of that arrogance hasn't. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if things could have gone differently. Maybe if they'd just come to me, asked for an easement, offered to share costs on maintaining the creek, we could have worked something out. But the moment they tried to take what wasn't theirs, to rewrite history with a forged map and legal threats, they crossed a line I won't ever tolerate. The best part: every time I drive by and see that shrunken clubhouse squeezed onto its tiny legal plot, I can't help but smile. That's the cost of overreach, a permanent monument to arrogance right on their own front lawn. If this whole ordeal taught me anything, it's that when bullies come for what's yours, you don't always need to shout. Sometimes the best answer is calm, stubborn persistence, and letting the law do the heavy lifting. Their mountain of paperwork became the chain that pulled them under. Justice isn't always fast, and it isn't always clean. But sometimes, if you're patient, it comes back around hard enough to leave a dent. My fences are standing, my cattle are fat and happy, and my family's land is more secure than ever. The HOA folks, they got the most expensive lesson in property law this county's ever seen. Now let me ask you, where's the line between being a good neighbor and standing your ground? Should you always try for peace, or are there times when you've got to draw a line in the dirt and say, not one step further? Drop your thoughts below. And if you've got your own story, whether it's about a stubborn neighbor, an HOA run wild, or the day you stood up for what was right, go on, share it. You never know who needs to hear it, because sometimes the truest justice isn't about getting even. It's about holding your ground so firmly nobody tries to take what's yours again.